Now, just a little side note of this, your request might be answered in the negative, and you may not like that. It may also be answered in not right now, and you may not like that either. But your request will get answered. And with all confidence, we know that God is capable. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, or wishy-washy this, or I'm not sure. That doesn't exist with God. And then we come to another part. Interesting part. It says, your kingdom come. Your kingdom come. I thought about that. Your kingdom come. And your will be done. You ever notice how this prayer goes? I acknowledge my relationship with God. I acknowledge that He is God, He is Almighty, omnipresent, omniscient, as Pastor Eddie mentioned earlier, capable of anything that I could possibly imagine. And then it goes, your kingdom come, and your will be done. It doesn't say my kingdom come. It doesn't say Ben's kingdom come, or Bob's kingdom come. It says God's kingdom come. You see, we're putting ourselves in the right frame of mind. We're submitting to God, not only as our Father in that relationship, but as King of our lives. It's His kingdom that we're in. We're requesting from Him. Some of us don't request, do we? Some of us demand. You better. Not a good way to start a prayer, by the way, if you're talking to God. You better do this, or you better do that. No. It's not how it works here. See, I submit to God's authority because God and I, we have this relationship through Jesus Christ. So I'm considered a son. You're considered a daughter, a child of God. So you can go up and say, Dad, I need something. Dad, I know you're capable of anything and everything that I could ever ask. But I also understand that it's your will that needs to be done in my life and around my life. We said this many times. We get blessed to be a blessing. It's not just to hold on to it, hang on to it. It's also to go out and bless others with it. We get to participate in God's kingdom. And we're asking for that. On earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Most of us, how many of us make bread in the morning? Nobody here is a baker, clearly. But we did have a baker here one time. So I have to say, and I do realize it's a lot of work. You have to get up very early to make bread. But that's not exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about sustain us in everything that we need. And sometimes we don't realize that what we need is not just physical. This is a physical thing, that I make sure that I have a roof over my head, that I have food to eat, have water to drink, clean clothes. All those things are wonderful to have, but I'm asking God to sustain me even further than that. Hallelujah. I want not just the bread of physicality, of the material things. I want to make sure that I'm taken care of spiritually, emotionally, physically, in every aspect, psychologically, so that when I go out into the world, I can do your will. And what I'm praying for is in alignment with what you want to see happen in this world. So this is an interesting prayer. We also have a confession in this prayer, by the way. Verse 4, forgive us our sins as we forgive everyone who is indebted to us. Anybody ever get hurt by somebody? Sometimes it's the closest people that hurt you. Sometimes it's the family member. Sometimes it's the friend who you thought was a friend. Not easy to forgive, is it? Sometimes we forget that we have been forgiven. Because we are so wrapped up into our emotions and into our feelings that, I can't do that. You see, but if you can't do that, Jesus says you don't really have any part with me, do you? I don't know what it must have been like to be hanging on a cross to have been beaten and ridiculed, and everyone that you know of, all those wonderful disciples that were with you, some of them that said they were going to go with you to the end. In fact, one of them was about to chop somebody's head off. He was not going for his ear, he was going for his head. He missed. But where were they? They were all gone. All of them. I don't know what that must have felt like. I don't know what that felt like in the end to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's the Jesus that we're claiming to follow. So if I can't forgive someone, then how am I supposed to ask God for forgiveness? Because what I'm really saying is that it's my kingdom, it's my will, and I'm the one in charge. And I'm too good, I don't even have to ask for forgiveness. You ever hang out with a know-it-all? No one likes a know-it-all, except for the know-it-all himself. They know everything. It's irritating. And then you realize very quickly that they really know nothing. Like the resounding gong that Paul talks about. I did all these things. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Have you ever noticed that this prayer is more about your relationship with God and your relationship to other people than it is so much about yourself? They asked, the disciples asked. Jesus taught them, here it is. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Now this is an interesting one. We spent a lot of time in the book of James, right? So we already understand that temptations rest in our heart. We have it there already. Now you may think that nope, I'm too good. I come to church every Sunday. I come during the week. I watch it every day. I read my Bible every day. That's not me. I can tell you for a fact it is you. It's you just like it's me. You know why? Because there are so many things that have been embedded in your mind and in your heart. And you will be surprised, given the situation, of what will come out of your mouth, what kind of action you will take, what kind of thoughts you will have, what kind of tweets you'll tweet, or whatever post you'll post. It happens every day, doesn't it? Someone gets caught up in the moment, and they find themselves falling into temptation. And I know we think temptations like the run-of-the-mill, alcohol and drugs, and those are all temptations. They are. Sexual immorality, all those things are definitely temptations. But what about the temptation to retaliate? What about the temptation to use our tongue, as James says, and use it to start a fire? Some of us are tempted all the time, aren't we? Some of us are tempted to assassinate somebody's character, to talk about somebody. There's a lot of temptations, and in this prayer, we humble ourselves and realize that it's not through our willpower, it's not through our magnificent intellect or spiritual doing on our own that we are going to steer clear of temptation. There's times where we're going to fall, obviously. That's why we ask for forgiveness, a couple of verses ahead of that. But the reality is we try to stay away from certain things. Why? Because we know it's not only detrimental to ourselves, it's detrimental to everyone else around us. Jesus is hitting all the points. If you really look at this prayer, he's telling you, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. It's embedded in the prayer. Our Father who is in heaven. That's our relationship. That's our relationship. Father, son, father, daughter, father, child. Forgive me of the things that I do, because guess what? I know people are going to do some things that are going to hurt me. And I know I'm going to have to forgive them. Now, we'll get into forgiveness another time, because forgiveness doesn't mean condoning, and it doesn't mean that what someone did to you was fine, None of that. Doesn't mean sweeping it under the carpet. None of those things. But what it does mean is that it doesn't allow the evilness to eat away at your heart. Because that's what sin does. It corrupts your heart. It's a corrosion of what's good. And the more corrosive you get, the more distance you become with God.